Hey everybody, it's 9 o'clock and 9 o'clock is with me, Father Warner. We are in a new week, Monday of the 11th week in Ordinary Time, and we continue with our study of the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 38 to 42. I've entitled today's teaching, Called to Reflect, Not React. Now, before I begin reading this text, because of Friday and Saturday we celebrated the Solemnity of the Sacred Heart and also the feast, the memorial of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, we missed out texts from verses 21 all the way down to verses 37. But if you go to my blog pottipadre.com, you will find these teachings which I have previously put up. So just type in the search pottipadre.com or pottipadre, Matthew chapter 5, and put the verses and you will get the teachings. Now let me read the text today and then I will explain this teaching, which is a continuation of the hypothesis that we began on Thursday of last week. Now, you have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not resist an evildoer. But if anyone strikes you on the right cheek, turn the other also. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your coat, give your cloak as well. And if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go the 2nd mile. Give to anyone who begs from you, and do not refuse anyone who wants to borrow from you. Now, the methods that Jesus proposed were radical, to say the least. Even if you look at nature, even nature reacts when provoked. There's that saying, don't provoke or don't poke an angry bear. This is not just a passing thought, but it's the experience of one who has borne the consequences of such stupidity of poking an angry bear. Now, it is in our very nature, therefore, to strike back. And yet Jesus came to nurture this untamed nature of ours. So what does retaliation really get us? It only gets us more pain and anger. The cycle of hate that Jesus came to challenge and transform was really demonstrated on the cross. What he preached here in chapter 5 in the Sermon on the Mount, on one mount, he practiced this on Mount Calvary when he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. So what he preached on one mount, he practiced on another mount. Now, Jesus has been teaching what it means to be a disciple. So far, every word from his mouth seemed rather shocking because it was completely new. He was not saying something blasphemous, but because the core of his teaching stemmed from the transformation of every person, something that the Jewish rabbis did not entirely subscribe to because they placed their laws and traditions over the human person. And because of this, Jesus' teachings appear to us as radical. They were new. They will constantly say, this man teaches with authority. Now, the teachings of Jesus have been misinterpreted by many, especially these teachings taken from today's text. They've been misinterpreted as a call to be a doormat. Somebody slaps you on one cheek, give them the other. Somebody wants your coat, give them your cloak. Somebody asks you to walk 1 mile, walk 2 miles. Many people misinterpret this to be a call to be a doormat. That would be a very poor and a misinformed way of looking at the scriptures. Jesus begins with the words, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. See, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth was the law of the ancient Near East. It was adopted by cultures across the spectrum as a way of limiting revenge proportionately and not encouraging revenge. Mahatma Gandhi got this wrong. It was a way of saying, if you took my eye, you were allowed only to take one eye back. You couldn't say, well, you plucked out my eye, I'm going to pluck out the eyes of your whole family. So an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth was a way of limiting revenge. Okay? Jesus wants us to go beyond revenge. So Jesus acknowledges that evil and its agents, because he calls them evildoers in our text, he acknowledges that evil and evil agents exist. In saying this, he is addressing and acknowledging that humankind expresses itself in evil and perhaps as we do in unjust ways. The Christian disciple is called not to react, but the Christian disciple is called to reflect the love of God. Reflected to whom? To the evildoer. And in that, we are called to do this just gently. So gently that in doing it, we shame the attacker with non-violence. So, in today's text, Jesus cites 3 examples of hate and injustice in his day that usually would have met with varied violent responses. To be slapped in the face was a tremendous form of disrespect, especially if you were slapped, because remember, if somebody slapped you this way, to offer them the cheek, you would have to turn, so they would have to slap you with the backhand. For Jesus, offering the other cheek was a very subtle way of shaming the person who attacked you. Now, at the heart of this action really is not to be a martyr, but there is a desire to reconcile. Let me explain. You can't reconcile when you seek revenge. If somebody slaps you and you seek revenge, you can't say after that, okay, I want to be friends with you, I want to make up. No. You can't reconcile when you seek revenge. Freely offered, the turning of the other cheek works both ways. It humbles the attacker and it also cools the desire, my own desire for revenge. That's the first example Jesus gave. The second, Jesus then gives the second example of what I would look at as non-violent Christian resistance, but with a view to guarantee a moral victory. A matter as insignificant as a coat, a COAT, has become a judicial dispute. Yeah, somebody takes you to court over a coat. Yeah, so clearly the greed of the human person can reach the lowest limits. And to such a person, Jesus advocates, he says, give your cloak as well. The cloak was the inner wear. And imagine standing in a court, just removing it in front of the judge and saying, Baba, take my coat. You want? Take my cloak also. Take all of it and go. It would embarrass the greed of the person right there in the middle of the courtroom. It would really make for sensational headlines the next morning. It would read, Father Warner took off his cassock and took off all his undergarments and gave it to the person who wanted it. I can see the headlines, yeah. But it would embarrass and everybody would say, my gosh, yeah, this is Christian love. You're demanding one thing, take the other also. And I have seen families do this. And let me call out the greed of some people. When greedy people are not satisfied with family inheritance and want more, I have seen others walk away and say, take it all. We want peace of mind. And woe be upon us when we go as low as fighting for little bits of things. I was once at a funeral of a dear friend, and I was horrified to see the children fight, even down to this thing of mummy and that thing of mummy, small insignificant things. Okay, let's come back to the gospel. Finally, Jesus gives the third example, and this one he draws from a Persian word. Yeah, the Persians use this word. The translation of the word is ana geruin. Ana geruin. It means in Persian to compel. Yeah, so Jesus says if somebody compels you, ana geruin, to walk 1 mile, walk 2. So what is this compelling somebody to walk? At the time of the Greco-Roman world, they had something called the pony service. It came to be known as the pony service. It was used by the Greco-Roman world, in which men were forcibly conscripted to assist in any service demanded by the Romans. And this was used as a tool of control over a colonized nation. To give you a simple example of this kind of compelling, it was Simon of Cyrene. What was he done? He was compelled to carry the cross of Jesus. The Romans could catch anyone and say, well, walk 1 mile with this thing, go to the next post, give it, and they will hand it over. And woe be upon you if you didn't do it. So Jesus wants the disciple to give more, be more, do more. Difficult? Yes, but not impossible. The invitation of Jesus to his disciples could be well summarized in that ad campaign which Pepsi ran a few years ago. The line, if you remember, was "Ye dil mange mo," and translated, for those of you who don't understand Hindi, translated it simply means this heart asks for more, this heart seeks more. And this is what the Lord wanted from our hearts. And this is discipleship: to love more, to give more, to be more, to do more, to always be more for Jesus Christ. Thank you everybody for joining me today. I will continue teaching all through this week. As I've said, I am in Malaysia. I've recorded all of these teachings in advance. I hope that I am able to record all of them for you before I leave Goa for Bombay, then to Malaysia, back to Bombay, then to Goa. Bye everybody. I'll see you. Thank you to all our donors who have shared a little meal with the children of our home, whether it's breakfast, lunch or dinner. If you'd like to, breakfast is as low as 1,000 rupees. I think lunch, I'm not too sure, is either 4,000 or 5,000 rupees. So if you would like to ever make, share on a feast day, share a birthday, share a wedding anniversary, a death anniversary, just share a meal. It means a lot to us. Thank you. God bless you. I'll see you tomorrow.